Yes, because people that don't do that, don't create the comfort with uncertainty, are hackable personalities. Not by themselves, but by others.
Right.
People that know what they're doing will come into your life and they will hack you and get you to do a bunch of stuff maybe you didn't want to, betray yourself, commit to things you didn't want to do. Like I think these like politicians, people in charge, groups of people will do this to each other all the time. So, and we call ourselves personality hacker, but truly it's not just helping you as the listener hack your own personality. It's also helping you not be hackable by understanding how you're wired, how you tick. Hi, welcome back to the Personality Hacker Podcast. My name is Joel Mark Witt.
And I'm Antonia Dodge.
I move through the world pretty certain of myself. I move through space. You know, I walk into rooms talking. Antonia, you complain about this all the time because I like walk in just speaking, being bombastic and larger than life. But there are times when I feel deeply uncertain about my experience. And I've noticed that it's very different than other people's uncertainty. Like my uncertainty has some similarities to yours, Antonia, but it is very unique to me. And I think there's some personality type reasons for the ways that I feel uncertain, not just in the Myers-Briggs system, but other systems. But we're talking about the Myers-Briggs today on this episode. So we'll look at it through that lens. But I think there's definitely things in each of our personalities, all 16 of the Myers-Briggs types, that create uncertainty in us. And every time I'm there, I don't feel good. I feel awful. I don't know how you feel when you feel uncertain about things, but I feel like I'm not doing this well. People are going to judge me. I'm insecure. I wish I could just make this thing go away. And yet it's stuff I still have to do in life.
Yeah. Well, I think certainty is really tricky for us as people. The first time I started really thinking about this idea was when I was putting together the webinar, or we taught a suite of programs called Tools for Emotional Survival, which I keep actually telling people to go get because it's actually really good.
Yeah.
But one of them is personality types and remaining optimistic. And one of the things that robs us of our optimism is a feeling of uncertainty, right? When we don't know if we can rely on our judgment, when we don't know if we can rely on our assessment of a situation. And this uncertainty makes it so that we don't default to it turning out because we don't know if it's going to turn out, right? Like we're just uncertain. Seeking certainty also really encourages people to take actions that sometimes are self-sabotaging because they're seeking a feeling of certainty over maybe satisfaction or other healthy emotions, right? Like the emotions we all crave. We crave happiness. We crave joy. We crave a lot of different emotional experiences that will actually end up foregoing in favor of certainty. And it's why, that old phrase of living a life of quiet desperation is oftentimes living a life where we put ourselves in a position where we will only allow ourselves like the next most certain step or action. So I think our relationship to certainty is actually really important. Like, how do we feel about it? Are we willing to be in a place of uncertainty? And are we willing to be there long enough to get the rewards of being there?
Yeah. I track motivations in other people and myself. And I've noticed that one of the primary motivators of human beings is the desire to feel certain. Like you mentioned, we'll do a lot for that. And I think this is what like dictators rely upon, or people in positions of power that get their way and get us to do all sorts of crazy things that we wouldn't normally do, is when we feel uncertain, someone that comes through that has a certain frame that they see the world in, and they've got the quote unquote answers. We go, okay, they feel certain about this that I feel deeply uncertain around. So I'm going to hand myself over to this person and just surrender my will to whatever they tell me to do, or this group of people or this culture or whatever. It could be a group of people. It could be one person, whatever. But we hand ourselves over all the time in those moments. And I think there's good reasons for this from a personality type standpoint as well. It's just the types of things we're handing ourselves over to.
And the criteria we're looking at. Like, I feel most certain when a person seems to have a lot of information around something.
Yeah.
Like they're well-researched and they have the capacity to form reasonable conclusions from that information.
That matters to me, but not anywhere close to the conviction someone would bring. Like that's what I look for.
Yeah, and when somebody has a lot of conviction and passion in something, it almost erodes my certainty in them because I'm like, are you being biased? Are you seeing this clearly?
But I'm like, oh, they're seeing it so clearly. They've got conviction. It's in their heart and soul. They know what they're talking about. And
Right.
I just defer to that, whatever they're bringing to the table.
Right, and that would make sense as an ENFP. Your judging function is introverted feeling, or what we call authenticity. And so conviction or feeling really deeply about something is going to be something you resonate with. Whereas I have ENTP preferences, so introverted thinking or accuracy is going to be my preferred judging function. So I'm looking for people who are, they know what they're talking about, or they can at least figure it out, right? They can form logical and reasonable conclusions based on that information. And so I think based on our personality type, and in particularly our judging function, we're going to have different criteria we're looking for that make us feel more certain in another person's assessments. But what about our own, right? And just to round that out, by the way, if you're an FJ, then that means that you'd be using extroverted feeling or harmony. I think people feel a lot of sense of certainty when an individual can make everyone feel good, right? Keep morale up, keep basically the social, wheel spinning, all of that greased, is diplomatic, knows how to read a room, knows how to say things in a way that the room will receive that information, is saying things that are in alignment with, the general temperature of what people are believing in the room. That's when they usually really rely on a person because they're saying all the right things. And I think with TJs, they're using extroverted thinking or effectiveness, and that's the ability to get things done, generate resource, make it happen. That's usually when they lean into people and feel a high degree of certainty for them. But what about ourselves? Like what are we going to use as criteria for ourselves to feel a sense of certainty around? Yeah. And when we were putting together that program on remaining optimistic, it seemed like the further down the function stack we went, the more people felt a sense of undermining energy for their certainty.
So just in case you're a new listener, Antonia's talking about cognitive functions. These are the wiring of your mind, the way you learn information and make decisions. We have some that we favor and some that aren't a strength for us, and they go down in cascading order, basically 1 through 8, but you really don't have to really pay attention when you're new to 1 through 4 positionally. That's what she's referencing. And you can look up at personalhacker.com. You can look at the car model, which we have there. You can understand more about what she's talking about.
Yeah. If you're new, 1 through 4 is the most interesting initially. 5 through 8 are very interesting later, but it's a lot of information. So stick with the passengers in the car for the meantime. And I used to think of them as descending order of talent, which I think is to some extent not entirely inaccurate. They are a descending order of preference, obviously. But why do we have more preference in the ones that are higher up, like our driver function or our co-pilot function? Why do we have so much preference there? Well, I do think it's a combination of a couple different things. One of them, we talked to a neuroscientist not that long ago, Dr. Denise Cook, who mentioned that we probably get more chemical reward for our preferred functions. Like we're getting higher amounts of whatever our preferred, neurotransmitter is. So that's part of the preference. But I think it's also because the higher up that function is, the more we've seen ourselves perform it out and the more certainty we gain around our ability to do that thing. So it's not just a talent, but it's also oftentimes skill development. So the further down a function is, the less we have tested our mettle in that function, or even if we use it on a regular basis, we're still going to have a sense that we're not as good in that region. And knowing that about ourselves can oftentimes help us diagnose where our fears and phobias come from, not in a, like a disordered way, but just like in a general way. Like, what am I going to probably fret about in my day-to-day life? What are the things that are going to weigh heavy on my mind? If there's a disruption there, how much certainty do I have that I'm going to be able to sort of navigate my way through that situation? And the lower function is, the more uncertainty you're going to have. So I realized that there's specific kind of labels we can put, like almost flavors of certainty to uncertainty that we can put on each of those functions. And I think while we won't go through absolutely every single personality type, you can take your car model or your understanding of your functions and you can play around with this idea. Is this how you actually are feeling? Is this the level of confidence you have around your personal functions?
Yeah. So again, just in case somebody's new, because we're talking about some pretty advanced aspects of the Myers-Briggs personality type system. Let's say somebody is an ENFJ in the Myers-Briggs system. The first thing is you take that 4 letters and you figure out what's called your CAR model or your cognitive function stack. Some people call it that. And that basically determines how you learn information and make decisions. And by definition, those 2 strengths you have are going to have weaknesses associated with them. And that's how you get 4 components of your personality, which we call the CAR model. There's a driver, a co-pilot, a 10-year-old, and a 3-year-old. And these positions matter. And there's some development inside of basically who you are as a person shows up with different aspects of yourself. I wouldn't necessarily say more mature, but more, more used, more accessed, more to the forefront of how you go through the world in your life. And so what we're talking about right now is not you as a personality type, the 4-letter code. You have insecurities in these categories. We're actually taking your personality and slicing it into the way your mind works, learns information and makes decisions. And we're saying these aspects of you have levels of certainty to them.
Right, exactly. Yeah, if you want more information about the CAR model, you can go to personalityhacker.com/CAR model, and there's some resources that we've created from before that will effectively break it down and help you figure out what your functions are.
Yeah.
And your CAR model.
Which is really powerful to know, especially if you're new into personality types.
Yeah, it's a leverage point, honestly, of really diving deeper down into what's going on. So that first function, the driver function, it's technically called your dominant. And in Dr. John Beebe's model, he calls it the hero function. And I like using John's archetypal names here because it really gives a sense of the kind of certainty you're going to feel if you have a hero energy there. So I would say the right word or the right kind of feeling we have around that first function is overconfidence. Right? A hero comes in assuming that they're going to be able to clean up a mess, take care of the bad guy, win the love of the, of the protagonist the entire time. Like they're going to be able to solve all the problems. And that's effectively the relationship we have with our driver or first function, is we assume that it's the right tool for all the jobs. And the overconfidence comes in 2 different ways. The first one is that we take risks in the domain of that function that maybe we shouldn't take, right?
Yeah.
We assume that if we break something in that function, we're going to be able to fix it. The second way that we show this overconfidence is that we bring it to situations where it is clearly an inappropriate tool for the job. So the 2 different styles might look like I have extroverted intuition or exploration as my first or driver function. That's my hero. Same with you as an ENFP.
Yep.
And we may assume that we can take risks with our extroverted intuition that might be inappropriate. Like we might pattern something that we end up being very inaccurate around.
Oh, I've done that.
Yeah, we're doing it all the time, actually. Like and make choices based on those patterns.
Yep.
Information we might not even come close to being able to know that that's true.
Or encourage other people to make choices on those patterns, which is even worse.
Right, exactly.
It's a hero, right?
Exactly. And then that overconfidence means that if we were wrong, oh, well, that's no big deal. We'll just fix that. We'll fix it in post, right? Like we'll figure out a way to, turn that to our advantage.
Yep.
Right? It's okay. We're just throwing spaghetti against a wall anyway. We're like life is just always just something that's emerging in front of us. And if we got it wrong that time, that's okay. We'll just fix it. Whereas another type might find that to be capricious, irresponsible, right? They might find that to be something that they would definitely never do. Make choices based on patterns of very little information, like entire life choices, right? Like getting together with somebody or starting a company or making business choices or whatever. Parenting, right? And that overconfidence means that we're probably taking risks that do have reward associated with them, and it's probably undermining us in some ways.
Yeah. As an example of this, maybe let's use a different type. Let's say an EFJ, an ESFJ, for example, uses harmony or extroverted feeling as their driver, dominant, or hero function. You can use all those interchangeably. Moving through the world, maybe in a social setting where they feel comfortable, maybe around friends of theirs, creating a little bit of drama in that situation, because I know how to get out of drama. I know how to smooth things over with people. This makes things interesting. It creates a dynamic here. Maybe you're working out some of your own issues, but you're like, I can create this drama. I can clean up the mess later. I can clean up any drama I'd create. So this might be how, like, for example, an EFJ might display this type of overconfidence, over certainty in their life.
Right. Or like an ETJ type might assume that they can throw all sorts of resource at something, right? Buy something very expensive. Well, you got to spend money to make money, or feel that, that they can take risks in their company or something to that effect, because they can always figure it out. So whatever that is, or maybe extroverted sensing, right, would be another style. Maybe take physical risks or do something that get themselves in a situation that they hadn't really thought about until now all of a sudden they're there and they realize it's really dangerous. So those are the kinds of things we're talking about. There's just this trust we have in our first function to get us through. And so we take risks there that maybe we shouldn't. And then the other side of that is that we bring it to a situation where it's not the right tool for the job, assuming we can fix this other thing that's unrelated. So going back to maybe an ETJ type, they're using extroverted thinking or effectiveness as that first function. They might think that they can buy relationships, right? Well, I'll just, I'll get wildly successful and then people will want to be with me.
Yep.
Or extroverted intuition, going back to our first function, exploration. We might always believe that building something new, which is a problem you and I have both had, when we just needed to buckle down and finish something, we're like, we don't have time to finish it. We'll just build something new or make a new, a new program or something.
Or INJs who hit a roadblock in creating something in the outer world. Well, I just need to see it from a different perspective more. I just need to keep moving into different perspectives. That'll get the job done when it's just about executing at that point.
Yeah, exactly. So whatever your first function is, I think it's like good to sit down and go, okay, how have I been showing overconfidence here?
Yeah.
How have I been breaking things assuming I can fix them? Or how have I been trying to solve a problem with this tool that it's actually unrelated and another tool would be better? So in terms of certainty, this is over certain. We have overconfidence in that first function. The second function, that co-pilot, that's what Dr. John Beebe calls the parent function. This is actually a more modest sense of certainty. We have certainty there. We feel pretty good about it, but we know that there's always more work to do because we don't use it as, like we don't instinctively grab it like we do our first function, and we don't identify with it as much as we do that first function. And so we end up having a little bit more modesty. That's one of the reasons why developing that co-pilot, that second function, is a leverage point, because it helps us tap into a sense of modesty. We don't always assume we can fix everything. We go, oh, some tools need something different. And I'm not 100% certain that when I bring this tool, it's automatically going to get fixed.
And it's unfun often. Like being a parent is not a fun job, either for the self or others. You get a lot of crap from your real kids or yourself, your inner child. You got to work through. It's like a serious job you have almost. It's more fun to go be the hero.
Yeah,
it's way more fun.
It's sobering. Right? Oh, I have responsibilities now.
Yeah.
Right. And so that sobering sense kind of brings the overconfidence into a place of like, okay, I'll be able to do this, but I'm going to have to put some effort into it, which is a much better way to experience reality with a modest sense of certainty. If you go to the third function, that's the 10-year-old in the car model. It's also technically called the tertiary. And John calls this the eternal child. So the eternal child is now when we officially dip into uncertainty for the first time. Now, we had a modest certainty with the co-pilot, but now we're in uncertain territory. But we really like that part of who we are. We usually are quite attached to it, and we like being there. So in order to maintain feeling good about being in this part of who we are, but at the same time dealing with an almost intrinsic sense of uncertainty, what we do is we seek the outside world to give us approval that we're doing it right, and then we relax into that. So it becomes approval seeking. That's the relationship we have with this function. It's not going to be as automatic. And if people withhold their approval from you, now you might feel really uncomfortable. Now you might feel the full weight of uncertainty. And that happens sometimes. We show up with that function, we try to do something in it, We look around for approval. Did I do good? And people are like, no, actually, you kind of messed up. And we feel so deflated. And then we don't know, have I messed everything up? Am I going to be able to recover?
Yeah.
So that sense of certainty is contingent on a relationship to the outside world. It only really manifests if we get that approval we're looking for. And approval can be from more than people. It can be from attaining a goal, or it can be from other measurements. But we have to get some sort of feedback from the outside world that we've done well. If we don't get that, here's the uncertainty flooding us. And so I don't think we'll take as many risks as we will at that first function, unless they're working in cahoots with each other. If that first and third function, or the driver and 10-year-old are in cahoots, the 10-year-old might take risks and chances it wouldn't normally, because it's leaning on that first function to borrow certainty from, right? But if that happens, the hero, right, that first function is going to kind of brush it off and go, oh, I guess I didn't do well there. But the 10-year-old, the tertiary, that eternal child, is going to feel the full weight of it. That's where we're going to feel that crippling uncertainty after we've messed up.
A lot of insecurity comes from this 10-year-old function, this tertiary, technically called the tertiary function. And like you said, it's an approval-seeking, almost childlike energy. And I think it's interesting to talk about it in the terms of uncertainty more than maturity, because I think it's really more accurate to say this is more uncertain than it is immature. Because we can have, especially somebody that's older, that has an entire life experience, somebody in their later part of their life, maybe 60s, 70s, 80s years old, even midlife. You may have some skill developed here. You have some life experience here. You might have had to use this part of your personality in your job, in your family, in your career, all sorts of things. The maturity can, I think, happen, but I think the certainty is always going to be stuck at a 10-year-old level. Like, you might mature, you might have to use and sharpen the saw for this, and maybe even be world-class at what this attunes to. And yet you still feel uncertain in the midst of all of that. And I don't think that uncertainty ever goes away for us as people.
Yes, which is why I like seeing it through this lens more than other attributes that we apply to these functions. It's not really about development. It's about certainty and uncertainty. That, like you mentioned, I don't think we ever quite lose that. We never quite lose the looking around the room to make sure we did a good job when we're using this function. Like, that never goes away. And there's always a sense that, did I mess up using this? And so that piece of it is, well, how often have I maybe done okay, but not gotten the feedback from the outside world that I was expecting? And that really deflated me, right? Like, maybe our co-pilot, our second function, encouraged us to take an action that didn't allow for approval for the 10-year-old or third function, right? Like, it's like, because those two are they're in a polarity. So take, for example, as an ENTP, my introverted thinking or accuracy, my second function, might encourage me to say something that isn't particularly popular to the room, right? Maybe I made a joke that was wildly inappropriate. Well, if I was saying it for my second function reasons, my introverted thinking accuracy reasons, if I was trying to land a point, then I probably can absorb the blow a little better. But if I said it to try to connect with the group, if I was saying it in order to, establish more connection with others, and it didn't land, well, now I'm going to really feel the rug pulled out from under me.
Yeah.
So it's really important to make sure that the things that we're doing, particularly with that dynamic, are more leaning on the certainty of our second function rather than taking risks and using that second function in behalf of the third. Like, if in a situation, if I make an inappropriate joke, but I do it in order to gain connection with others, then I'm using my second function in behalf of my third. And I really want to be reversing that dynamic. I want to maybe make a point or land a point with introverted thinking or accuracy, but then use extroverted feeling or harmony to make it so other people can, receive it. So it's more diplomatic. That's the better dynamic. And then now I don't have to feel that horrible sense of uncertainty that I've just done something wrong.
So let's talk about the fourth function, the inferior, technically called the inferior. We've nicknamed it the 3-year-old position because, again, not necessarily maturity level, because you might be an older person that's used this your whole life and developed skill there, but the certainty level is about a 3-year-old age group, right? An age of about 3 years old for certainty you have in this function. And so this shows up in overcompensating way often in a severe either ignoring this part of us or overdoing and doubling down on it, not like we do with the hero, but more in a very black and white binary way. So, for example, maybe this function is, let's say you're an INTP, and this function is a harmony function, extroverted feeling, and you are deeply uncertain about social rules in your environment. You don't know, you don't have confidence you can navigate this space very well. But some social rule has hit you. It struck this part of you. And you've created a binary, like you do this and you don't do that. And it doesn't have any nuance or context thinking to it. It's just a wholesale decision you've made at a 3-year-old certainty level. You've anchored it into your personality. And now you go through life living by this rule. And it may not be applicable in all situations or context. Not only do you maybe live this rule for yourself, but you project onto others. They must also obey this rule in order to be cool with the entire group. And so you've overdone this and you've locked into a very binary, simplistic viewpoint. And we all have this, by the way. We all do this in our personality. Or you just decide not to look at it at all. You just turn your face away from it and try to ignore it. And then it comes up from the shadows and creates challenges from us because it's a very uncertain part of us.
So we like to say it's deeply uncertain.
That's right.
You mentioned deep uncertainty. And what would a 3-year-old experience other than deep uncertainty? Like the world is big and it's filled with a bunch of scary things. And so you cling to your mother, you cling to, anybody who gives you any sense of confidence, you're going to cling to them because everything is new. Everything is out of your frame of reference. And that's the emotion we feel when we get to this place.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, it ends up creating that, almost like that first function does, right? There's like 2 different ways it manifests. The first function, the hero, it manifests as taking risks you shouldn't be taking and trying to use it as a tool in inappropriate moments. And I think you beautifully stated that third function does the same thing. It shows up in 2 different contexts.
You mean the fourth function?
The fourth function. Thank you. That
We're throwing
function,
numbers around all over the place here.
The 3-year-old, which is the fourth function. And Dr. John Beebe calls it the anima or the animus. And this function spins off in 2 different directions, like you just mentioned. It either ignores anything that comes up that is in this realm, like in this slice of life that this function usually is focused on. It ignores it because it doesn't know what to do with it, right? Kind of like a baby or a toddler putting, their head in the mother's shoulder, right? They just don't want to see it, or putting a blanket over their head. The other option is to double down on the rules. Like, no, you're not supposed to. Have you ever been chewed out by a toddler? Right? I have.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Right? It's like, no, you're not supposed to do that.
They're very passionate.
Right. Because they figured this one thing out.
I love the passion.
Yeah. You're not supposed to stick Cheerios up your nose. Don't you know that? Right? I figured that out. I figured out no Cheerios up the nose or whatever's the rule.
And it's fun for adults to break the rules that toddlers have just learned to see. Well, it's fun for this adult. Maybe not all adults enjoy it. I like breaking rules in front of toddlers to see just how much they'll scold me.
Right, because it is adorable. It is. I don't know if it's kind, but it is cute. So that idea of, you just mentioned an INTP with extroverted feelings, social rules, that harmony social rules. Sometimes they'll be the policeman for those rules, like a toddler will be when they found out you're not supposed to touch that. Don't get near the stove. I was told don't get near the stove. You're not supposed to do that. You always have to buckle, right? A little toddler will say, always buckle. Make sure you're buckled up in the car. So there's these very simple rules that we get in our 3-year-old inferior animus function, that fourth function. And it's hard to get them out because they're like the ones we figured out. So that's not because we're certain of them. It's because we're deeply uncertain. We're uncertain about this entire terrain, and we grab onto the things that the very few things that we figured out. So that can be a bit of a saboteur. Right? Not knowing where the lines are, not wanting to look at something that feels overwhelming. And we're going to engage, like all of these functions, all these mental processes, deal with an area of life that we all experience, right? These 8 different cognitive functions are just 8 different aspects of life that every human being has to engage with. And there's going to be areas where we feel overconfident. There's going to be areas where we have a modest sense of certainty around them or confidence. There's going to be areas that we only feel confident or certain in those areas when other people are like giving us a thumbs up.
Yeah.
And there's going to be areas of life in which we always feel deeply uncertain.
Yeah. So two things are coming up for me. I just want to anchor in really quick because I know we're going to wrap up here real soon. Maturity versus certainty. I'm really coming down to understand. And I think this is why people have, we talk about personality type theory and personality type application. And you'll talk to somebody in their 50s or my age in their 40s and talk about, like your maturity level in this function. And people are like, well, I feel mature there. I've got a lot of life experience. I even have skill there. I'm better at that than people that might have it as a dominant or co-pilot. Like I'm pretty good at this thing. And I'm like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. But it's that certainty piece. So I just want to re-emphasize that certainty is probably a better metric than maturity, although maturity can come over time as you grow in age. So I just want to make that comment. And then I just realized that whole uncertainty level in especially the 10-year-old and the 3-year-old function, the tertiary and the inferior functions, for any personality type, positionally, when a human is deeply uncertain there, we often put ourselves back on certain footing, sure footing. We don't want people to know what we're insecure or uncertain around. That makes sense. The challenge is we miss opportunities to see those aspects of ourself or to tap into the energy that part of ourself is attuned to in the world. And so we miss so much when we protect our ego and we want to be certain and we put ourselves back on that certain footing. We can't sit with the uncomfortableness of, oh, I don't know. I feel uncertain. I'm not sure of myself in the situation. When we don't allow ourselves to be there in the midst of whatever material is presenting itself to us, we miss so much. We miss out on all of the learning that can come from just being with that.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, the big aha in all this, I would say there was two different things that I really came away with, which piggybacks on what you just mentioned. And that is it's a leverage point to be able to make peace with uncertainty.
Yeah.
Like, can we do that? Can we make peace with uncertainty if it's inevitable? Right. And that's why in that program, talking about personality types and remaining optimistic, it's not figuring out some way to game our psychology so that we never feel uncertain, because I don't actually think that that's possible. It's making peace with uncertainty and that it's inevitable.
Yeah.
And going, okay, I'm going to have to figure out how to have uncertainty, even if it's never comfortable, something that I can stretch myself and make a little bit more part of my comfort zone.
Yes, because people that don't do that, don't create the comfort with uncertainty, are hackable personalities. Not by themselves, but by others.
Right.
People that know what they're doing will come into your life and they will hack you and get you to do a bunch of stuff maybe you didn't want to, betray yourself, commit to things you didn't want to do. Like, I think these politicians, people in charge, groups of people will do this to each other all the time. So, we call ourselves personality hacker, but truly it's not just helping you as the listener hack your own personality. It's also helping you not be hackable by understanding how you're wired, how you tick. And again, getting a hold of this uncertainty piece makes you less hackable than if you don't. Because if you continually avoid, not only are you not going to see the opportunities coming up, but now you're a sitting duck in a lot of ways. So we talked about that INTP who doesn't maybe want to look at the harmony, inferior, or 3-year-old process. I'm just using INTPs as an example. It could be any type. This is just particular to INTPs or ISTPs. And now they won't look at it. They don't have the opportunities that surface there. They might have black and white rules, but then the rest of it they don't really attune to. They're exposed and open to ending up in codependent relationships. Outsourcing this part, somebody that's more emotionally with it can come in, hack their personality, manipulate them, and then 5 years goes by and they're like, how did I get in this dynamic? Why am I with this person or these people or this group, or what happened here? I feel very codependent and I'm not myself anymore. And they've lost a sense of who they are and what they're here to do in the world. So I think that's the other important message, is that it's a protective thing so that you are actually sovereign in your life. You're in control of your experience. Other people aren't.
Yeah. Well, I think of a lot of thinking dominant types, or people who lead with a thinking function, ETJs and ITPs. Their feeling functions can be quite hackable, and I think they know that about themselves.
Yeah.
So what ends up happening, and for feeling types, it's the opposite. If they are leading with feeling, their minds can be hacked by idea viruses.
Yep.
right? Or like things in the outside world that just kind of go, this works, and go, okay, I guess I have to do that then. And then there's, versions of this for every type. Not making peace with uncertainty. The reason why I think, as you mentioned, people get hackable is because they're seeking certainty at all costs.
Yeah.
Right. Like we mentioned before, people will live lives of quiet desperation in order to not stretch outside of a place of certainty. They'll go with what they know. And we'll do all sorts of self-sabotaging behaviors in order to just have an experience of certainty. So the reason why people become hackable is because they want to borrow the certainty from the other person.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so anybody who has certainty for sale, right? I'm buying because I don't want to feel uncertain. So that's the first thing. And I think that you just expressed it perfectly. The second lesson I learned from this is that not all feelings of uncertainty mean something is wrong, right? I'm always going to feel deeply uncertain in my fourth function, my 3-year-old inferior animus, right, of introverted sensing or memory.
Yeah.
There's always going to be a part of me that when I'm in that space, I'm going to go, am I allowed to do this? Is this okay? Seems pretty counterculture. Is this all right? Am I setting myself up for something not good? Like, I'm always going to experience that. It doesn't mean that I'm actually doing anything wrong.
Yeah.
It just means that this area of life is something that I just always have some question marks around. I'm starting to see this. I've called it the principle of, did I leave the iron on? So I don't know if you've ever had this experience. You've ironed shirts. You're a person who irons shirts.
Yeah. Are you talking to me?
Yeah.
Yes, of course I've ironed shirts.
I'm like, has he? Well, since we've been together, you haven't. But I know you ironed them before. No, maybe even since we've been together, you have.
Yeah, I have ironed shirts.
Okay.
Now I'm deeply uncertain. Are people going to think I didn't iron shirts, my own shirts? Of course I don't iron a shirt.
Well, I don't have a memory of it. Yeah. So
I prefer not to iron. It's not a fun experience. I would prefer just to like dry it in the dryer or something, and then shake out the wrinkles if I can, or buy a shirt that doesn't need to be ironed or whatever.
Well, we're contemporary people. I don't think a lot of people iron these days, but I think it's still a thing that we know exists. So
sure.
That experience of having ironed something and rushed out the door. Maybe judges don't know this experience, but you rush out the door, and maybe something just came and messed with your system. Usually when you're ironing, you're alone, but somebody called you and you had to talk to them, and then you had to go get ready, and then now you're out the door. And now let's say you have an appointment that's an hour away.
So you've left some electrical device running in your home.
Yeah, something that might be dangerous later.
Yeah.
All right. And you're an hour away and you're at this appointment, and all of a sudden your mind goes, did I turn the iron off? Right. And it's just this moment of deep uncertainty. Right? You just don't know. You can't remember, right? Did I do that?
Or did I lock the front door? Did I close the door? Did I make sure I let the dog in the one room I was supposed to? Like whatever the thing is.
Yes. Whatever is that moment of like, did I do that thing that I was supposed to do? And you can't do anything about it, right? Because what are you going to do? Like miss your appointment and drive all the way back to check? You don't have time for that. You're an hour away, right? You've got this important meeting. Or can you call somebody, but you can't get a hold of anybody to check it for you?
I just thought of this entire podcast as a setup for like a home security, like camera system, so you can check on your house when you're not there. Like the whole thing was to sell you on this, right?
That's right. Yeah. Sponsorships welcome, right? So, but you're not going to go back and check, and you're just going to go, well, fingers crossed it's all going to be fine, and I don't drive home to a house that's on fire.
Yeah.
You drive home, everything was fine. Either the iron was on, but nothing happened, and you're like, ooh, I dodged a bullet, or the iron was never on, or you didn't leave it on. But like 99 out of 100 times, or actually probably like 99,999 times out of 100,000, it was fine, right? It's like, it was not that big of a deal. So those moments of deep uncertainty, we realize are just reflexes. They're just like check-ins to make sure that everything is okay. And I've started to realize that these moments of deep uncertainty from our fourth function, that inferior function, is usually did I leave the iron on moment? Did I lock the doors? Did I let the dog out? Like that's basically what it is. But we experience them as something is wrong. And it isn't always. So when you're experiencing that uncertainty and you can trace it back to your fourth function, it might just be a moment of that. And you just need to calm yourself down and go, it's probably going to be okay. And sometimes it's a terrible unmitigated disaster, but usually it's not, right? Usually the house is not on fire. And I'm just going to lean in on my first function to kind of help calm that part of me down and go, it's probably I'll figure it out, right? If it is on fire, I'll figure it out. And then you just get on with your day. And so I think the two pieces are make peace with uncertainty, right? It's inevitable. You can't get rid of it. And uncertainty isn't always a problem. It doesn't always mean something is wrong. It's probably just a check-in.
Yeah. So where are you deeply uncertain in your life as you're listening along? You don't have a microphone. It's just been me and Antonia here talking with you, but we do want to hear from you. Do you track the uncertainty in your own personality type? If you go to Personality Hacker and you look at the car model and you find out your driver, your co-pilot, 10-year-old, and your 3-year-old, does this track? Do you have more uncertainty the lower down these cognitive functions are in your personality? Maybe you've got uncertainty. It's a real surprise to you. As you're listening along, you're surprised as you think about the things you're uncertain about. You're surprised at what those are. We want to hear from you. Come over to personalityhacker.com directly below this episode or wherever you're listening to this episode. Leave us a comment. You can ask a question or, more importantly, share your personal story. Stories are atomized experiences. They're experiences captured in a retelling. So we get to hear experientially what you've been through in your life around uncertainty. And we'd love to get this conversation going for other people to communicate with us as well. We're kind of in this emergent series right now, talking about the different selves, self-trust, self-esteem, self-awareness. And we're now talking about self-certainty. Like, how much certainty do you bring to the table in your life based on your personality type in particular? So we want to hear from you. Come over and make your voice heard.
Yeah. And speaking of uncertainty and deeply uncertain, I have written out my script.
Oh, you did?
Or at least given myself some notes because it's changed. I can't just rely on the same thing I've said for like 8 years at the end. It's altered, and now I'm remembering a script to say at the end to let people know.
Oh, yeah. On the last episode, I was supposed to do something to help tee you up, or is it at the end? No, it was at the end,
no,
right?
I think I got it.
Okay, I don't have
I've
to
written
do
it down.
here. Fantastic.
Let's see if my deep uncertainty. I do have deep uncertainty, but let's see if I can figure this out. Okay, so
this is because it's your fourth function.
It's because it's
something
my
you have to do
function.
over and over again. Your introverted sensing or memory function, which is your fourth function. You're literally displaying what we're talking about in this episode.
Totally, right? It's like it's its own example
Wow.
in the wild right now. All
Fair
right.
enough.
So, if you enjoyed this podcast, you can subscribe to us on Android. If you enjoyed this podcast, you can subscribe to us on iTunes and various Android platforms. If you leave us a rating and review on iTunes, it helps us out a lot. You can also subscribe to us on YouTube at our YouTube channel, Personality Hacker, where you can watch, or maybe right now watching our video podcast. And you can like and subscribe and leave a comment there as well. We have a book. It's called Personality Hacker. You can get it at all major book retailers. And if you leave us a rating and review on Amazon or on Goodreads, that also helps us out a lot. And I've been totally plugging this program, which you have not gotten, but you need to go get, called Tools for Emotional Survival. It's a 3-part series. We talk about remaining optimistic. We talk about dealing with stress. We talk about all sorts of really great stuff that you can apply to your everyday practical life. Do you want to deal with less stress? Do you want to have ways to manage that? Do you want to have ways to deal with building more optimism in a world that has gone quite cynical? Head over to personalityhacker.com, and in our suite of programs, you'll find that program. It's for all personality types. Highly recommend it. It's one of my favorites that we've done recently. So go get yourself a copy. And that was my script.
That was fantastic.
All right.
That was good. I think you're going to get better over time as well.
I will. It's a little clunky still, but at least I'm not like sweating bullets when I'm doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My name is Joel Mark Witt.
And I'm Antonia Dodge.
And we'll talk with you on the next Personality Hacker Podcast.